Right, you're gonna start. You're gonna. Why did it cough like that? That's bloody annoying.
Ya'udu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah ta'ala barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Action TV, Guerrilla Minded Productions. Myself, Bilal Ali Hugh, in the house.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa ta'ala barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Action TV with me, Muhammad Solomon.
What do we want to talk about today? We want to talk about sex. Sex in a wider context. Something that is quite repressed, you could say, in the Muslim community. Taboo. I don't know when it became a taboo, and I don't know why it became a taboo in the Muslim community or in the Islamic nation, you could say. But it has. We can recognize that it is so. We know that there's been some information in the public domain about an alleged sex shop that was to be opened in Saudi Arabia. Yes. There are also reports to say that there is information to suggest it's contrary. But there is a shop of that nature really existing in Turkey.
Yes.
Before we get into the facts and finally finding that, I don't want that to become a red herring or a straw man for people who watch and say, well, it's actually not true, because that's not. We're not actually talking about.
Yes, whether it's true
the fact or not the fact of it.
Yeah.
We're talking about issues issues related to the possibility of a shop of that existing, lingerie, items of a sexual nature, things to enhance a person's sex life, if there's such a thing in Islam. Where do you want to jump in from, bro? Because there's so much to pick apart, so much to break down.
Yes.
Where do you go in? But we want to mention one more thing as well. If you're under 18, don't watch this. That probably means that if you're under 18, you're gonna watch it to the end, to the last second. But we're saying in all seriousness, if you're under 18 or you haven't got permission from your parents, you're not considering marriage, it may be a little bit early. Check this out in a year when you're, or two, when you're a bit older. It'll still be online, inshallah. So,
inshallah, the knowledge will still be there.
Knowledge is still there. Yeah.
Well, I think that what I'd like to jump right into saying is that I believe that the present view of Muslim women in terms of their sexuality or their sexual awareness or preferences or feelings or emotions, I believe it's one of the most underlooked areas in the Islamic world, particularly among the scholars. And I believe that Muslim women have been given a great disservice in that they're treated almost as if they have no sexual desire whatsoever, and they're merely there to produce children or be at the behest of the pleasure of men. And I believe this is a long-term problem or concept that's been within the Islamic world for a very long time that now needs to be addressed, now needs to be looked at. And I think that women themselves, if you go online and you look at what's happening now in the discussion forums of particular Muslim women looking at their own sexuality and their own feeling about their own bodies, they now feel that they're inclined to want to be a certain way about themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean they need permission from, say, particular scholarly writings or from muftis or from men's own issues around their bodies. So I think there's this dynamic of women wanting to be more empowered with themselves, with their own bodies. I'm not sure if a sex shop is particularly the best way to do it, but it helps to highlight the issue that women are not just there purely to please men.
I wonder if the idea of a sex shop in itself, though, as they put in the thing, a halal sex shop, yes, meaning that they would only stock items which have been approved by the ulama. That's a bit of a generic term. I mean, could some of those ulama be women? Because it'd be interesting to know. There's a gender bias, a bit gender heavy, but I mean, if you were to need to make rulings on certain things and it's pertaining to the female, it might make to the woman, and it may need like a woman's input, or you'd assume there would need to be, you know, feedback from women. You know, like you do the research to come to a conclusion based. I mean, unless you're saying it's just based on the text.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, there's the fact is they said in this particular video that there's nothing un-Islamic about women wanting to receive pleasure in sex. So they say according to the hadith from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that, you know, that as long as it's in a married situation, a man and woman should be able to do whatever they deem fit for themselves. It should be permissible for them. But it's true when the men work, the majority of probably are men, if they are,
who come to
conclusions, because you know, if it is in Saudi Arabia, this is a country a woman can't even drive a car. I'm sure a woman wouldn't agree to that. So we can assume that there's maybe a group of people got together and they've decided, group of men got together and they decided what's fitting for a woman's body, what's pleasurable for her. And I was saying this earlier on to another brother that I believe these archaic, out-of-date concepts. This is my perception. I'm not saying I'm here, you know, representing any particular scholar or any particular line. This is just me speaking from my own experience and my, you know, as a Muslim and as a person of the world, citizens of the world, so I can do from my limited perspective. But I believe that these archaic rules are coming more from a cultural bias and a misogynistic bias, and coming from a particular maybe an Arabian concept of how women are, as opposed to what our Quran is saying, as opposed to what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his pure family is saying. I don't think that this looking at women almost as objectified in this particular way, of sexless beings who don't enjoy pleasure and have to be circumcised. You know, they've genital has to be chopped away and removed because of the society hinges on the honor of the woman, and whatever she does with her sexual organ, the whole society will implode if it's not controlled. Like it's, you know, like you're culling animals. You have to control the woman's sexual, wanton, wild appetite. This is not. When we
because if she's
I don't get that from Bibi Fatima Islam. I don't get that from her. I don't get this need for control. I get an Islam that says women intellectually free to be empowered, physically, you know, to be empowered and to be able to express themselves.
I think it's interesting you say something about the culling, because doing some research recently, and a scholar I won't mention, but one from past eras, you know, hundreds of years ago, from a certain school of thought, you know, talked about the need to control women because from his perspective, women's not just their honor was hinged. The woman's honor was the duty of the man to maintain, but not to. Didn't sound in a chivalrous context, but the context sounded like a kind of misogynist. It sounded like an ownership thing.
Your own horses, your own.
And if she becomes almost sexually thirsty or unsatiated, unsatisfied, that, you know, she will go outside of marriage. And it will destroy the society. So the society's social order is hinged on this, basically, the woman's sexual appetite.
So it's a bit Christian, isn't it? Isn't it like Eve tempted by the snake, tempted Adam, and because of the humanity fall of man, it's based on the woman. Evelyn, evil Lynn, and she shall toil all her day by having menstruation, and she shall, in having babies. This is a curse on the woman. Well, is it crept in?
It would seem so. I mean, as you mentioned before, I'm not saying I'm ulama and I've but I can ask a question. I can think about it. And I can think aloud, and that's all I intend to do, inshallah. But you know, if you take that point further, you follow it to this logical conclusion. If the woman's appetite is not satiated, and that may lead her outside of marriage. I mean, I just thought, well, couldn't do the same thing for the man? I mean, you know what I mean? So the social order is. It is something to be protected, but I mean, why are we hinging it on the females?
Because I believe, I think
is it repression and suppression? Repression from the females themselves, because there's a whole thing about, you know, this fake piety. You know, it's modesty. Like, what is the concept of modesty even amongst, you know, like some in Muslim cultures? Like sometimes, you know, if you have to speak to a sister, you know,
you just said you wear a nice hijab.
You know, you in a public place, and you may speak to a sister, for example, and say Assalamu alaikum, and they look like you're not up there. Because if I look at you for too long, like, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Like all men are predatories.
Yeah. So there is something like that for. I think there is need for exploration for us to kind of like come to an understanding in the context that we're living in terms of the environment, but also the age that we're living in. To, you know, how do people maintain and navigate this and observe a religious modesty, but is it a kind of character modesty? You know what I mean, like a fake, like fool, you know, cardboard cut out modesty, or is there a way of being modest, being a real person 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, that person with dimensions to themselves, but at the same time observe what Allah has prescribed and what His messenger has, ordained. There is something I want to bring up because you mentioned the Prophet of Allah. You mentioned the Prophet of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, and there's a hadith that's been attributed to him that says that the man should be right. I'm going to use the word romantic. That's not in the translation, but I'm just putting that word. Show chivalry, show kindness, show some gentility to his wife, and before intimacy, not being like the he camel with the she camel that he's going to take his thing and bounce, but kind of warm her up, cool. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, and I'm giving this a loose paraphrasing of what was said, but what it led me to believe is that this is something that the Prophet spoke about to give advice to the Sahaba and to the Muslim community at the time, things of a sexual nature. So I'm thinking, where did we arrive at? Where if we know in the history books that the Prophet of Allah has spoken about sexual issues and given advice and consultation to the believers to enhance their safety of marriage and in a good environment. How you can, that's part of you, man. You can express that. How do we reach that? Even the word sex in itself
cannot be used.
What's going on?
Good point. I think what's going on is that somewhere in terms of what Allah's ordained for the woman and the rights for the woman to have because a man and woman both make up a partnership, so that's equal amount of sex. To say that a woman's sexual drive is less than the man is ridiculous, because drives are something which is depending on the individual. So there could be women who've got higher sex drives than men, and vice versa. So to all women all one sexual, that say there's a level 10 and all women are level 3 and men are all 10. It's utterly ridiculous. And sexuality and pleasure can be defined in different ways. Like what somebody wears could be turned on to somebody. You know what I'm saying to you? So I think it's important, if couples are going to spend a lot of time together, you're going to be a long time married, the most important room really should be the bedroom. Not the living room, not the front room or the kitchen, the rest of it. Unless you like certain parts in the kitchen, whatever. But maybe the whole house could be if you want it to be that way. But just imagine it is the bedroom, right? Why is that not given all the concentration? Because you spend a lot of time generally sleeping there anyway, 8 hours a day. And then you also spend time actually making the children and the next generation. But no consideration is given for sexual pleasure, for libidinal pleasure, for exploring the sexual character of those individuals. It's all about getting married, having children, and pleasing the family, and the rest of it, and cooking and cleaning. But I remember seeing in the film Raging Bull, and what's his name? De Niro was having problems with his wife, and he speaks to the brother, and the brother says 90% of all the problems begin in the bed. And he goes, "You're having problems in your marriage because it's something going on in the bed, isn't it?" And I think men, because men don't want to accept that maybe they are not able to please their woman, maybe they don't know how to really do foreplay and enjoy and really please women. Maybe just a one bang thank you, ma'am. Instead of them realizing they need to look at themselves and maybe do things to make the wife pleasure the wife, they start putting these locks on them by saying, "Oh, they're the problem. They're wild." Because it's the fear of the woman going to leaving them, isn't it? But instead of them thinking it's my fear of her leaving me, or she's thinking of leaving me because she's naturally womanless.
So own that fear. You can elevate yourself.
Yes, like his life, wasn't it? Yeah. Black woman was all like sensuous and sexual beasts, in it. But the slave master was constantly, he's doing the raping, he's doing the attacking, but he's blaming her for being licentious and looking sexual. And the black people, they're all all they want is sex with black people, isn't it? But all these little big space babies keep his filthy claws up on them. No. So most men are falling into that, because what you have is a sacred feminine and a sacred masculine. And if you look at the Egyptian belief system, most African belief system, they put the man and the woman together, they balance them out. They understand that there's a harmonious yin and a yang between the system, connection between the two. But it seems in the Muslim society, which is supposed to be carrying on that spiritual, from the ancestral concepts of African spirituality, you found it's completely lost. It's just become this Arab, pale Arab concept of burying your daughter, misogyny, women are less than us, it's all about sexuality. I can have 4 wives because it's a sexual thing to have the 4 wives. Not because it's like building a relationship with somebody, extending the family, doing it in the context as Abraham alayhi salam, the Prophet did. You're doing it purely because it's sexual. And we talked about that earlier when he says that, this is where you have the rise of pornography. Because now people are getting connected to porn. And you break that down, you mentioned that about that, how when these endorphins are
No. Some of the research I've done previously, and what the research suggests is that, say for example, when a man has intimate relations with his wife, there's a certain what's the word? Certain chemicals, endorphins, but you know, like certain hormones and chemicals are released in the mind, not the mind, but in the brain. Like, so it's a physiological, not a metaphysical, but a physiological response. These chemicals are released, and they help to bind the man to the woman that he is intimate with, and it brings about that kind of closeness. So it's a behavioral, but it's also a chemical level, right? And what they say is that when a person watches pornography, that instead of that binding taking place between the wife, who's a real woman, it binds them to the screen, to the the phone, the video, whatever it is, but it binds them to the imagery. So then their appetite becomes towards the imagery, and just like drugs with an addiction, they need a higher hit every time. So then it often leads, not always, but it often leads to people accessing more, let's say, dangerous material. So it might start as a regular, for whatever the term means, but regular porn, accessing just, viewing.
We're not condoning anything.
Yeah, we're not condoning. Obviously, the ulama have clearly spoken on this, and they've got the evidences about this being forbidden and for a reason. But the fact is that it can escalate to more hardcore. And one of the problems is that in the Muslim communities, that sometimes there's not enough education and information, because everything is you make it so taboo that people don't know where to. Muslim people are trying to be devout. They don't know where can I get trustworthy information. They may go off and get information from different sources that are not necessarily reliable or respectable. Or coming from
I totally agree with you. I think what's happened is that I think that because of this draconian Victorian concept of Islam, you've now, men and women are separated out because of the males and females are separated. When they grow up, that's why you find the rise in homosexuality in certain countries. There's a lot of male rape by heterosexual men on other heterosexual men because of the splitting of the male and the female, and it's either that women are somehow dirty after their periods, or they're this and they're that. So a woman can't sleep in your bed, you can't touch her. So there's this idea of the woman.
And that's not Quran and Sunnah.
It's not Quran and Sunnah.
Quran says that it's a discomfort for them, right? Yeah, that's what it says. That's unclean.
Unclean, no.
Yeah.
But this is the concept they have of these dirty women, and it's almost like this Greek Hellenistic concept that women are less than men. They're boys without private parts and this type of thing. So. And the highest level of sex is with a boy. This is Hellenistic Greek mythology, but it's kind of crept into the deen. So now you've got grown women who, because they haven't interacted with males, you can speak to them in a public setting. Assalamu alaikum, sister, how are you? They're all acting like little 2-year-olds, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh, man's talking to me, what do I put my head? This type of thing.
Quirky,
and it's weird. And you're in the 21st century here. And they also look at the way that and the reality is, with a lot of these sisters, and I'm going to look directly at you at the camera, because you know the situation, you know a lot of you, I'm going to say it, you're freaky. Let's be honest now. This little front you're putting on, it ain't fooling a lot of people, because behind all of that, let's just not just say men watch pornography, but every record show, women watch it too. Women have a sexual feelings and desires as well. So a lot of women, all this little image of shy, right? No, I'm not saying it's good to keep it in the house, don't get me wrong, and with your husband, that's right. But the problem is
in the right environment, it's fine.
But if you are not satisfied and you got all these things going on, why should you live in suffering silence? You should be able to, if you can talk about Quran, Hadith, and Arabic and all these things, as Muslims, couples should be able to openly talk about what pleasures them, if they're not happy with things. The man shouldn't have an ego about it, woman should have an ego, right? They obviously will have boundaries, but they should be able to speak openly. So if this sex shop, halal sex shop, aids in that discussion between the couple, right? And it allows the cat out of the box or the genie out of the bottle, because why are you going to be unfulfilled? You got one life, right? You're gonna, and a particular woman, they're gonna reach. The men can go until they're 70, 80 and having children. Women are gonna reach menopause. So you've got, in a way, woman, you've got a time limit to some degree, right? So if you want to get as much pleasure and enjoy not just your sex life, but also your marriage, and enjoy developing your husband, both of you almost really should really sit down and talk about these things openly, and not put put these things under the rug, because Islam is here to discuss everything openly in an Islamic environment, in a way that enhances the society, not bring it down, not destroy it. But because I believe all this rise in pornography and all this
unfulfilled people,
it's unfulfilled people not happy. So they're going out and they're cheating and all these things.
No, definitely. And I think
I'm not blaming the woman. So I'm not blaming anybody. It's not blaming man or woman. We're just looking at objective. It's a reality.
It happens. But one of the things that I think that what Muslims often forget is that or are afraid to actually speak and consider is that realistically, sexual intimacy between husband and wife can improve the marriage, can help the marriage, and it can also, if unfulfilled, wreck the marriage. So it's worth a halal environment to work on that. So like you said, if the shop brings that discussion into the forum, and it provides products that can help people to enhance that aspect of their life.
Yes.
I mean, I know there's going to be the conservatives who just be quaking in their boots here.
Stuck for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Sexism for procreation.
And it'd probably be best for them to turn off at this point in time anyway, if they haven't been
already.
But
who do you think they are?
But if they're still with us, if they're hanging in there for your own sake, because this is not for the faint-hearted. This is strong
touch
talk.
that dial.
This is strong talk. You know what I mean?
Talk,
but we're trying to be modest, but at the same time, we're trying to keep it real and not fake the funk because there's too much suppression. I want to know about objectification, but I think before we go on objectification, I think we've got a question. We have a question, I believe.
Yeah, it's just about gender mixing. How does that input into what you were just saying? I mean, a lot of ulama are strictly against gender mixing.
Yes.
I was watching a lecture recently saying, when you attend a wedding, it must be, you don't want to be near these made-up women, women wearing makeup. It has to be gender separation, that sort of thing. But then you think of that and think, well, when you're on Hajj, you're mixing with genders in a very intimate locations indeed.
True, yeah.
So, is there a contradiction there? Is there some something that needs to be resolved in our teachings and our understandings of Islam and the roles of genders and how they interact between each other, which needs to be looked at more carefully?
That's an interesting question. I mean, if I may respond, I'm going to speak as a Westerner. Yeah, I said it. I'm a Muslim, but yeah, I'm going to speak as a Westerner. I think in traditional Muslim societies and Muslim countries, which I wasn't brought up in, I think because that's a part of a system, it may have its pluses and its minuses, but I can understand it in a particular environment. But I think it's just off key when people use terms like living in the West and say things like what's the term I'm looking for, free mixing, because you usually get to the lecture that you heard on a tube or on a DLR train full of women packed. Do you know what I mean? And after that, and you just left college. Do you know what I mean? With women and men, so we're in all these environments.
Wearing makeup.
Yeah, wearing makeup and wearing less than the women in the lecture. So I don't know.
And they come and sit next to you on the tube.
Right next to you, or stand right next to you. So why do we freak out when we're in a mosque or imam or a prayer room or some sort of the sisters and the curtain and the sisters are fake modesty for me. It's silly. It don't really make sense to me.
And not only that, the Quran tells you it promotes single people getting together to get married. So they're not going to do that in a wedding environment. When are they going to do it? Do you see what I mean?
And you have and they always have the male hijab, which is to lower your gaze. So I don't like walking around literally to say bumping into the place, but if you don't have to be ogling at women, But if a brother has that kind of inclination, I don't think he's going to necessarily want to do that in the masjid, because there's so many women outside that don't observe any kind of hijab. They just.
So what we're saying is people need to be trusted and to act responsibly, don't they? I think that's what it boils down to.
I would say, just to answer that, for example, in Africa, we know that, for example, I went to Gambia, and there are Muslims in Gambia, but then people walk around bare-breasted.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. Certain types of women. In Gambia, yeah. I'm not advertising that for people to jump on the train tomorrow. But for example, in Africa, in certain societies, they're Islamic. In parts of Sudan, they don't wear dress and they don't have any issues around rape or this sexualization of the female form, because they're just brought up with it. It's normal. It's nudity, part of the human body. They ain't got an issue with it. So when we talk about ulama, we have to understand who we're talking about, where we're quantifying, right? We're talking majority of ulama is from countries like maybe Iran or Saudi Arabia, which have ultra-conservative concepts of Islam. And these are people that have come in, these are people who have a particular view from their cultural perspective. That doesn't mean they speak for everybody. People have to remember that. So one scholar doesn't speak for the whole of humanity. And this concept even in itself is trapping Muslims in this idea that, we have to, one person thinks for us all. That's not what Islam is about. Islam is multifaceted and it's complex. There's grey areas, there's nuances, there's subtleties. We have to stop with this black and white concept of things. Hamza Yusuf said it on one of his tapes. He said that there's evidence that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to have bare-breasted women in Mecca. around
That they
it.
existed,
And they existed, yeah. So when that verse about the hijab, when it came down, it was it said to those women, cover your breasts. It wasn't. It's a constant in the hair because the concentration was on the hair. So this idea that men and women can't feel, I think that hits the nub on the head. That's the reason why we have all these sexual issues of contact issues around, interaction between men and women. I mean, the Wahhabis even say every part of the woman, and the Salafis, every part of the woman is a fitna. How can you call a woman a fitna? She's causing you problems down to her fingernails. The Quran actually says she can, she's allowed to show a face and her hands, but they cover the hands and the face up completely. They cover the whole person up. So we can see clearly that they maybe they can't bury their woman anymore like they did back in the day, bury the girl child, but they're burying her psychologically, they're burying her spiritually, they're finding other ways to bury the female. Epistemologically, to bury her, to kill the female, to keep the female oppressed. They're finding all these other ways. So
and that's an objectification
in itself. So we got to really understand what this means is that, and get really into the context of things, And I think this is very, very important point that you're making. I mean, I've been on Hajj, and I've heard women report that they've been touched up, they've been sexually molested. That's why some of the particularly the Nigerians, they form a protection so the woman can walk within the protection. So imagine on Hajj, people are doing this because of this separation and the rise in homosexuality. So this sexual thing is something that we're touching upon today. We're going to do a series of something similar to this about relationships and that. It's the first in it, but it's just opening it up roughly to put this out on the table, put it in the atmosphere, and if people are afraid to think it, well, we're not afraid to say it.
That's right. First of many, inshallah. But until next time, stay safe, and we hope we haven't offended, but we've provoked. I'll leave it like that. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.